Yes, we are back officially, well and truly. I'd like to thank everyone who's again still with us throughout all this. Sorry for the delay, but I have finally had, shall we say, clarification on my shall we say videos, so I can now continue on with my videos. I've been very looking forward to talking about it. So much stuff has gone on, and I'm really glad to, shall we say, get back into the swing of things with you. So I'm really looking forward to, again, as we say, as always, jumping into this article to talk about, obviously, the continuing corruption scandals that are continuing and why, again, Boris Johnson has to fear Kathryn Stone, who is the Common Standards Committee chair and is in charge, shall we say, of looking into all these MPs and their wrongdoings. So, but before we always do jump into that article, please do remember to hit that like, share, and subscribe button. And of course, down below there are links to my Patreon page and a one-off donation link called Buy Me Coffee, where you can, well, buy me coffee. And as always, thank you to everyone who does support the channel. Even if you do just click the like and share buttons, it always helps the channel grow. And thank you very much for your support throughout the past couple of weeks. So let's jump right into this then, shall we? So this comes from Prospect Magazine, the title of Why Johnson Has Reason to Fear Kathryn Stone. And she is the House of Commons Standards Committee Commissioner and is a present risk to many Tory MPs, including the PM himself. So, the House of Commons Standards Commissioner, Kathryn Stone, is also known as a Thomas Becket, at least as she is to Boris Johnson. Like Henry II, wishing to rid themselves of that turbulent priest, the Prime Minister used this affair of the now ex-MP Owen Paterson to try in a bid to try and silence Stone. The difference is that Henry II succeeded while Boris Johnson has failed. And therein may lie his ultimate undoing. For now, it is pretty clear that Stone was the real target. Paterson is a long-standing ally of Johnson and has his public school and, of course, Brexit gang, including fellow Etonian alumni, the business secretary Kersey Quitang, who this morning, after the very narrow vote to overturn the penalties on Paterson, was selling the influence in Parliament for an obscene £100,000 a year, made a point of telling a TV interviewer that Stone should now resign as she has clearly lost the confidence of, well, Quitang and his boss Johnson. The reason Johnson wants Stone silenced is also very fairly transparent. If she could topple Paterson so spectacularly, she now presents a risk to many others, particularly the string of pro-Brexit Tory MPs who have been, quote, taking back control of the prosperity rules in Parliament and have standards inquiries all hanging over them. The Prime Minister is among these prime ministers who himself, with a massive entitled ego, has been gilding his Downing Street flat and taking expensive foreign holidays from donors at an increasing interest to the Standards Commissioner. It is a mistake to think that because of the Paterson affair, Johnson is immediately on the skids. What happened here was, of course, classic Boris, as described in the prospect profile of the Etonian Prime Minister. In both the speed and the ruthlessness of his lunge against the Standards Commissioner, then his retreat in literally less than a day, he judged that he couldn't hold the ground. Johnson's problem was, with a majority of an already reduced to 18 on the motion to overturn the penalties against Paterson, and Labour pledging to now boycott any new and weaker parliamentary standards regime, too many Tory MPs, including among the newly elected and still untainted 2019 intake from the Northern Red Wall, simply were not prepared to go along with the subsequent acts of parliamentary controversy needlessly to abolish the whole system for upholding standards. Now, the elaborate machinery that now dates back to the early cash for questions and allowance scandals at the tail end of the last long period of Tory rule in the 1990s, and the equally sordid final of the new Labour era from before 2010. After Johnson's repeated retreat, it would expect the standards issue to actually fade for a while. His biggest immediate challenge is all three of his slogans for government: make Brexit work, build back better, and of course, levelling up. They are either or coming unstuck or just devoid of content. Brexit Minister David Frost himself now concedes the unworkability of his very own Brexit deal only 2 years ago. Hence, his very feverish attempts to try and rewrite the Northern Ireland Protocol, which is enraging the province's all unionist leaders because Brexit is steadily undermining unionism and the strength of Sinn Féin. And I attended the Sinn Féin annual conference in Dublin last week to get the measure for prospect of the increasingly significant Irish political party, which could soon very well be leading governments in both Northern Ireland and the Republic. And I can report that the survey, plausibly, Mary Lou McDonald and her party are very highly organised and confident in their ability to win through not only at the ballot box, but whatever they needed to achieve either by violence or their erstwhile parliamentary allies in the era of the Troubles. The hapless DUP leaders in Belfast, who foolishly went along with Johnson and Frost for the hard Brexit game, are now resemble a very much beached Wales. As for levelling up, Johnson has devoted a very rare long day seminar at Chequers this week in a quest for his holy grail. The trouble is that it doesn't exist without massive public investment in the Midlands and the North to provide the infrastructure and services to match those of London and the South East. Rishi Sunak's Treasury carrying the record debt and having to pay for Boris Johnson's new NHS and social care plans just simply isn't coughing up. Anyway, the equally big problems in the Red Wall is the lack of the highly paid jobs and attractive opportunities for young people, and of course, Brexit is also steadily making these problems worse. The irony of this week is that the supreme exemplar of levelling up in the Red Wall is one Kathryn Stone. Born in Derby and raised in Belper, she attended the Belper High School, where she told an interviewer, there are many exemptions of community participation and a demonstration of social responsibility, which instilled in me a very strong sense of duty to society and helping those who are disadvantaged. Stone's career began with a job as a house parent for children with special needs. She later became a child protection social worker and a mental health practitioner, which led her into the regulatory roles as the care services inspector, then carried her to a current role in the Parliamentary Standards Commissioner. Indeed, her story is far more poignant still. A decade ago, she served as the Commissioner for Victims and Survivors in Northern Ireland. At the end of her term, Stormont DUP First Minister Peter Robinson and Sinn Féin's Deputy Minister First Minister Martin McGuinness paid tribute to her as a tireless in her efforts to ensure people, families, and groups were afforded equal service in acknowledging the legacy and then the past in the building for a better future. She is now equally tireless in the pursuit of the wrongdoing of MPs. If a nemesis exists for Boris Johnson, her name may very well be Kathryn Stone. So, interestingly enough, this does pose some massive problems for Boris Johnson. Like I say, a lot of MPs have standards inquiries coming after them. And if Kathryn Stone is as fearless and as relentless as this article says she is, then it is very likely Boris Johnson could, shall we say, find himself without a lot of these, shall we say, erstwhile allies and MPs, especially now that it has been shown that Johnson is not willing to protect his own MPs, especially after Patterson was, well, ceremonially, literally thrown under the bus. And what does this say about the rest who are now facing standards inquiries, especially after Boris Johnson stood up and said that wrongdoers must be punished, when so many wrongdoers so far, Priti Patel, Michael Gove, just to name a few, have had inquiries and then have not been punished for their wrongdoing. It does not set a very clear record for Boris Johnson. So, with that, as always, thank you very much for joining me today. Like I say, please remember to hit that like, share, and subscribe button on your way out. And of course, down below, there is a link to my Patreon page and a one-off donation link called Buy Me a Coffee, where you can, well, buy me a coffee. And as always, thank you very much for watching, and we'll see you all next.